Yeah, guys, you're tuned live to tnsradio.com. Gary with you from now until such times I decide that I'm not going to be with you. On the line just now we have Bill, and Bill is from the Runnymede Institute. How you doing, Bill? Welcome to TNS Radio.
Hi, Gary. Glad to be here.
Absolutely pleasure to have you on board, sir. Now, concepts of law, we're going to be talking about that just shortly. But the truth of the matter is, and we only discovered that you were going to be coming onto the show tonight about 2 days ago, so and there was a wee mix up with YouTube videos and stuff like that, so I've not really had a chance to look at all your stuff. I think I looked at about 3 of them, because that's all that was available at the time. So can
you're a brave man then. having seen 3, you're very brave.
Well, can you give the listeners, Bill, a little rundown on yourself, your history, your background, where you're coming from and where you're going to?
Okay. Actually, I didn't think about this much. You can hear from my accent that I'm from the States, and I have a degree in economics, but I haven't really worked at it in many years. And I worked as a systems analyst, and I was in the U.S. Air Force, which probably is a strike against me, but I figured I'd better say something about that
Sure.
now. And so I'm in a situation basically where I'm with Runnymede Institute in London, and we're trying to do a few things. We do studies and such, and we put our head above the parapet with the online presence that we have right now. So we're sharing some very important concepts with people, because what ends up happening, I guess, is people get into a confusing situations where they have a run-in with the authorities. And so we're trying to be helpful in a time when really nobody knows which way things are heading, because it seems like society's falling apart. So I guess in one way I have altruistic reasons for being involved in something on the web. And I don't want to be a star, in other words. It's a way to pass on information, and it's done in a fairly amateur way. We've been told we don't have great production values, but the message that we're trying to get across is that maybe it's time to sit back and think about things in a bit of a different way, and to explore a little bit how historically we got here. So concepts of law is one. Now we're doing concepts of money. And it's kind of like a slowly approach to saying to people, well, okay, things aren't the way you think they are, but they're not that bad either. Because one thing we have is we have free will. And once we exercise our free will, just about anything is possible. So it's an optimistic message, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So there you are.
Okay, so the concepts of law videos, can you talk us through the information that you have, and we'll discuss it as we go?
Okay, well, the whole idea is that because of the level of education people used to have 2 centuries ago, quite a few things happened in a very short span of time, and those things translated finally into the mountain of statutes that we have to guide our lives today. Mm-hmm. So I had quite a hand in the research of this, and fortunately I have a good enough, I'm as a hobbyist, I guess, I've always liked reading history. Okay, and the thing about history is that you have a certain amount of time, and let's say more than 1,000 years, where people practiced suppressing the body. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's really changed is that the powers that be, they found a way to suppress the spirit, and they did that by wrapping us up in paperwork and rules, nonsensical rules that are supposed to guide every aspect of our life. Mm-hmm. But the truth is that if you're looking at law, pure basic law, and where it comes from. That's not what it's about. Yeah, there aren't really that many laws. And it starts out with do no harm. That is the statement in different languages and said in slightly a different way. But it's all about do no harm. And I think that if you start from there, it's all about not injuring people, and yes, there are consequences when you do. But at the same time, you have a certain level of protection in that basic law that says no one's going to injure you. So the rules are pretty explicit and few, unlike now. So I think that what I started out with was trying to get across to people that, okay, it is about money. It's always been about money. But at the same time, there are certain people who, the ones who perpetuated the world government we have now, because it's already here. I mean, everyone is talking about the mechanisms that will tie up all the loose ends of the world government, which is a one world currency. And that's what we're moving towards. But, you know, somebody had to put that in motion somewhere. There had to be an agreement. There had to be the legislation that came in didn't happen by accident at all. It was incremental, all of it. So we don't have a place to start. But I think probably because, well, you're concerned with Scotland. You're familiar with the Scottish Martyrs, possibly? Okay. Well, they were martyrs, but for different reasons than maybe, or let's say it's a bigger story than even you're told. Now, personally, I looked into that, and I noticed that the church where they put the obelisk in their memory is just such a very obvious phallic symbol of certain organizations, you know, that actually had a hand in making them martyrs in the first place. And it's almost like a victory column. Yeah, and I'm saying that as an outsider, you know, that I'm not saying they didn't do anything valuable, but for me it comes down to it's almost co-opting their sacrifice. And at the same time declaring victory for themselves, because what the Scottish martyrs were about was the awakening of the time. Okay, if you look at it's before 1823. Everything before 1823 was a preparation, and there is. I talk about in the films about benefit of clergy. I talk about it quite a bit because the law is really based on the Old Testament. Okay, in the very basic. After that, whatever rules were made in society were made because the government of the day, whether it was a king, a duke, a count, an earl, whatever, they were just always doing what they could get away with. And so the basic law, starting without, do no harm, then it went on to other things, but very few, as I said before. And so it was very difficult to actually control people. So I think that one of the reasons that so many wars were fought throughout the world, just one of the many reasons, of course, is because they had to keep people busy. They always had to disconnect people somehow. And that disconnection, by building small hatreds, whereas we have big ones being constructed today, it was easy to take somebody from a village, train them a little bit on how to hack people to death, and send them in a boat across the water, and there you had the 100 Years' War. So these preparations that, as I say, that they were making before 1823, they were all about foreseeing the end of those things and bringing on a greater change, and that meant Napoleon, of course. And with the Napoleonic War, you had quite a few things that were accomplished, again, to lay the groundwork for having no arguments in the Parliament of the day, when they were going to be making all these huge changes that nobody was going to notice, but the Scottish martyrs noticed. Yeah. So it was a little bit, I believe, like if you look at some of the legislation that's come in, any piece of legislation, you go, oh my God, they want, don't stand there with your hands in your pocket when you're waiting for a bus or something. Yeah. Because you might have a bomb in your pocket, and I don't know, just something really ridiculous that might happen once in a blue moon, if you will. Anyway, or would never happen at all. And you say, this is nonsensical. Why are you putting this legislation in? Well, it's in preparation for something coming down the road. As somewhat like the 4,200 pieces of legislation that Labour put in. Why did they do it? Because Strasbourg told them to do it, and they rubber stamped everything. But I believe that, personally, I believe that the legislation Labour put in was for the police state that they anticipate to arrive here. And as we talked about before, there are some riots in London at the moment, but they're not political riots. These people, they're angry, and they really don't know why they're angry.
Well, I think to be completely spot on about it, I think my own personal opinion, there will be people that's aggrieved in London, as there is all over the UK and also the globe, but I think there's a lot of opportunists taking their moment right now in London. They're talking about on mainstream news that some social networking sites that this message is being passed from people to people, saying we're organising this, we're organising that, and I'm not aware of that. Maybe that's happening. I'm not sure. But there is opportunists is going to be involved in these things, and people are going to use the situation to benefit. But as I said, pre-interview with ourselves, I know in no way can condone the burning and looting and stuff that's happening in people's homes, and this is affecting people's lives. There's got to be a more sufficient way of passing a message across. Now, just as we're talking about London, Bill, also heard in the past few days that the Metropolitan Police in London are also encouraging the general populace to, just as you mentioned, don't stand don't stand at the bus stop with your hands in your pockets. The Met Police in London are encouraging people now to inform on people who they suspect might be terrorists. Or, sorry, I'll rephrase that. That's the bottom line of what they're getting to. But what they're actually saying is, can you inform on people you believe that are anti-government or anti-establishment in some way? This is what's happening.
Well, it's funny because that the snitch culture, the attempts to bring in a snitch culture and literally bring us down a rung. Okay, this is what they're doing. Because the desperate situation that you have is contrived right now. It's a controlled demolition. The banks can basically leverage anything still. They've gotten, they say it's 14 trillion, but most people in the know would say it's closer to 25 trillion that's been floated around the world by the U.S. government in the last couple of years in order to be able to add hot air to the markets. And what that's done is it's thrown things out of balance, totally out of whack. And that's probably for the best reason for it, I think, would be you have a situation where the stock market goes up and down, but they're inflating it with a plunge protection team. All right, so if you're reflecting a rise in the economy in the U.S., everybody's losing their job, and 45 million people are on food stamps. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something terribly wrong. But when you look at the market, you go, whoa, hey, that's pretty good. I better invest. Okay, so a tragedy is happening right now, and most people don't recognize it. Yeah, because they're looking at the stock market. What's the Dow show you today? What's the FTSE?
Well, that's right. Well, the economic growth of both the US and both The UK, I've been made aware in the past few days, has actually been less than what they assumed that it would be. It's actually down in the UK to about 0.2% or 0.02% growth, which is worse than the last quarter of their economy that they do the figures for. So everything, as you say, is excuse me, everything is designed, and it's been a long time in the making. I mean, this is a long game. This is a long tennis game that's been happening. And the powers.
Well, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to say one thing. You know what? Even though this is all contrived, yeah, that there's still more than one solution to everything. But I don't think it'll happen because the politicians aren't, they're not able to perform. Yeah. So if we want to be optimistic, we really have to look for our own solutions that we can pass on to people somehow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's no excuse for going out and doing damage to property or people. But at the same time, these kids, they're online, as you said quite rightly. And by the way, I've seen those messages as well, where they're saying they're being invited, they're targeting certain stores, and all sorts of things. Yeah, it's true. That's online. But at the same time, these kids are going online, and they're seeing the bleakness of the situation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because with their series of friends, if they're on Facebook, just to mention one place, they're going to see what the friends of their friends are posting, and somewhere along the way, they're going to just lose hope. That's really what's going on. So they're losing hope through their social network, and especially if they don't have any kind of education, or if they've been, as we said before, if they've been fashionably dumbed down, yeah, they don't stand a chance in hell, if I can say that on the radio. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's been a lot worse. They don't see a future, so... What does it matter if you go down and rob JD Sports? That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, but the point of the whole situation, as to my belief, and this is just my opinion, Bill, that's exactly what the powers that were want. That's exactly what they're leading the country into, and the reason for that, in my opinion, is to eventually at some point implement martial law. And if they continue, if the riots and the looting and all the things that's happening in London, and we now know it's spread to Birmingham, if these things continue to happen and continue, and it just keeps going up the country until we get to Newcastle, Manchester, Newcastle, Liverpool, all the major cities, Coventry, right up into Glasgow, Edinburgh, Stirling, Perth, Dundee, into the Highlands. Not so much the Highlands, that's for another reason. But the whole idea is to get troops on the street and implement martial law. That's my belief. And these guys that's out doing these things at the minute, looting and burning places to the ground, is actually playing into their hands. What would you say to that?
Well, I actually do agree with you there. Our encirclement has been planned, yeah, and it appears that the tools are in place. And what's really too bad, I think, overall, is that there are a lot of people who don't care, yeah, who really don't care. And that's the sad part of it, because they're going to suck in a lot of innocent bystanders in what they're doing, and yeah, it can happen. If you look around at the estates in this country, how they're built, they're designed more or less to be able to be sealed off as a ghetto in any estate that you look at. So there are entry points and exit points, and yeah, it would take very few troops to keep everyone in line. But at the same time, we do behave like free-range debt slaves. So we're already halfway there. And the way that the television, the mainstream media, which I don't watch, by the way, I can't stand watching the news because they always have a happy message, you know, and they're giving this happy message to all these miserable people who can be sucked into something, well, as Orwellian as you said. There you go. Yeah. So I hate to say it, but I do agree with you on that. It is bleak, and I think we're all taxing ourselves to find a better way.
Well, of course, you know, as we've spoke about, as an Orwellian society, that the powers that we are intend, you know, it's maybe an oxymoron there, but the powers that we are is trying to push us towards, you know, where we're nothing more than a number. We're talking about the implementation of the RFID chip. You know, so this is the way that they want things to go. So when you talk about solution, then, you know, what would you reckon as a solution?
Well, the most important thing is to know yourself. Yeah, people really have to get familiar with who they are, and it means parting with quite a few illusions. And for example, today on the website at Runnymede Institute, rmiglobal.org, there is a link to a website that has a great article on what does your name mean? Yeah, or what's in a name, actually, is what the article is called. And it's the Epinoia Sphere is the name of the blog. And basically it lays out in grammatic terms what the composition of someone's name is. And I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but in our research about how things really work within the system of law, that works all over the world. It's not just unique to Britain. What we're finding out is that there's a lot of trickery, basic trickery. And it begins with how you use your name and how you identify yourself. So the men and women alike have inalienable rights that they believe were taken away from them, and they haven't been. Yeah, they still have them. Okay, and the only reason that they can't use them is because they're caught in this word spell if they should have to go into a courtroom, and they're immediately entrapped when they state their name. Yeah, that's basically where it begins. So once you get to know yourself and get a bit of confidence, it takes some study, it takes some effort. Yeah, but this is a preparation, and this is what all the dumbing down has done to us. It's our detriment that, you know, we have been dumbed down, all of us. The TV shows with the lawyers, excuse me, everybody thinks they know legal procedure because they watched Perry Mason. You know, I watched 50 reruns. I can go into court and defend anybody. You know, that's it's the silliness of people, and they play to our vanity. Okay, for example, television has a lot to do with it. Within 10 minutes, every TV show's got to give you the biggest clue possible of how it's going to end. It makes people feel smart. Yeah, that's the secret of American TV. That's why I can't watch it. So that's how they dumbed us down. So really, one solution, you can't save everybody, okay?
Yeah.
But one solution is for the people that really care, yeah, and people who are willing to be a little bit disciplined and take responsibility, they should get to know themselves. And they should, excuse me, there's a lot of garbage on the web, okay? But there are a few people out there who are worth looking for. And you know, this YouTube is fantastic. I mean, if you watch YouTube for a couple of hours, you're bound to get a good education and at least other people's experiences. Yeah. So there you are.
Yeah. Well, of course, you know, the listeners to TNS Radio, they're kind of well aware of just about every issue that's happening, I would imagine. They're a very bright bunch of people, very intelligent, maybe intelligence is a wrong word to use, and I'll explain why. It's no that, even yourself, Bill included, you probably wouldn't say that you're any more intelligent than anybody else. It's just because you're privy to more information than your regular Joe Bloggs that walks the street.
Well, you know what it is. I was thinking about this a lot because I've been speaking with a lot of bright people, to my good fortune, and we all have our thing. We all carry what we think in our head is useless information. Okay. But one day, suddenly, you wake up and you go, "Well, wait a minute! I happen to know about this," and you see something and it grabs your interest, and you read something more about it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, literally, I can only speak of my own experience. I was as cynical as anyone else, and I can also tell you that I had this mind block where I didn't want to believe certain things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the U.S., they teach you that the government loves you, and it's hard to let go. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the end of a love affair. And with the Medusa, let's say. But when you look at the people who have actually taken full control of the U.S. government, and it's a country that I used to love, and a lot of other people too, and it's going down the toilet. All right, literally, it's going down the toilet by design, and this little dance that they had with the debt, people don't realize they intend to raid, if they haven't done it already, every last bit of pension money that they can get their hands on. Mm-hmm. So this is just one of the machinations that they have to go through in order to make it legal. So there you are. That's what the debt ceiling was all about.
Yeah. See, when you talk about concepts of law, and you're saying, people have got to realise who they are themselves, and that would also bring into play dropping the ego and all these kind of things, and just realising that we're all the same, we're all one, we're all just frequencies floating about, bouncing off each other. Some frequencies don't, match your frequency and that kind of stuff. But as to understanding yourself, and it's something I've mentioned the past 2 or 3 weeks now, and I'm starting to take this thing and carry it forward with me now, because I believe that it's important that people comprehend what I'm saying. Is that even if you look in a Black's Law dictionary, I've said this, 3-4 weeks now. Even if you look in a Black's Law dictionary, and you look at the word self-law, well, roughly translated, I can't do it verbatim, but roughly translated, it says, where your feet are planted, that's your law. It's self-law. So,
may I elaborate on that for just a second?
Sure.
Because this is really important. Because when you're talking about the concept of law, excuse me, sorry, I don't have a cough button here. The concept of law is really very simple. It comes down from an idea that was spiritual in one way and philosophical in another. Okay? I mean, if the two aren't the same, I don't know. But I'm talking about, if you look at Greek philosophy, which I've been fortunate enough to be able to read in the original, what happens is it has a meeting somewhere in the ancient world with the prophet Isaiah. And people started thinking the same thing. And what they were thinking was, they came up with this idea, yeah? The gods were there, and other people had one god, and other people had 188, But the same idea was in play, that we are eternal spirits, sojourners on the land, and that's our body. Our body is the land, okay? And if you accept that as the basic law, then you have to say, don't injure the body. Your body is a temple, yeah? When the original law was interpreted, the king was you, okay? So there's a bit of confusion that everybody's going to bump into in Black's Law, because they still use the same phraseology, but it means something else. Yeah? And this is one of the reasons I suggested that anyone who is interested should read this What's in a Name article, because he goes on to show you in proper syntax, yeah, something we all avoided in school, good grammar, and he shows you how it's constructed, how your name is constructed, and it's not actually a name, it's a phrase.
Mm.
Yeah, in real terms, in grammatical terms, your name is a phrase. And someone who's been able to explain something like that so well, it deserves to be read twice, which I'm going to read it twice. Because you need to gain some confidence. If you're in a bad situation, you got to stand your square, as they say. And you can keep the law at arm's length, but not with statutes. Okay? So what we're trying to do, concepts of law is 10 clips. Okay, maybe that's a lot, but it's all a setup, really, to arrive at a point where we want people to, we hope to be able to translate it in such a way where people will get interested enough to build up their self-confidence of who they are. And as I say, you're an eternal spirit occupying your living body. And so, yeah, for a while they enslaved the bodies, then they enslaved the minds, All we think about is the rules we have to follow all the time.
Yeah.
That in itself is enslavement.
Yeah. Well, see, that comes down to eventually an individual's perception, just exactly, I can't agree anymore with you about waking up, realising just exactly who they are, what they are, and where they intend to take themselves and where they want to lead. When you talk about the name, if you break up name, the actual word name, you've got N, you get A, and you get M-E.
Mm-hmm.
So it's N-A-Me, enemy. Your name's actually your enemy.
Well, we're all enemies of the state, by the way. I hope one of my colleagues has confirmed that recently, and we're all looking into it because supposedly it goes one step further. I mean, we wear a lot of hats. What happens with us? The problem with law today, which is not law, it's a private establishment. It's a going concern. The problem is that with all of these statutes, we're constantly conforming, and we're not supposed to be doing that. Okay, so if they need to prosecute you as one thing and they can't, they go on to one thing and another, and next thing you know, we're all government employees somehow, some way in there. But as enemies of the state, okay, we are registered non-resident aliens. That's everybody, by the way. Legal, illegal, holding a British passport, holding a foreign passport. Everyone on the planet right now is designated as an enemy of the state.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. We have a lot of ridiculous hurdles to leap over.
Absolutely. We've got a question coming through for you, Bill, and it's from Samraj, I believe, posted this for me from TNS Radio. Gary, will you please ask Bill where we can read the article What's in a Name?
Oh, it's called the Epinoia Sphere, but I don't know what the first name in the WordPress blog is, but it's listed at the top article at rmiglobal.org, one word, rmiglobal.org.
I know that Stuart's sitting in the background there, so perhaps maybe you could give Stuart the nod just to send me a link through on Skype, and I'll pass it to the various locations that want it.
Okay, could I just tell him for a second?
Absolutely, sure. Guys, if you've got any questions for Bill, start loading them up into the chat boxes.
It's coming your way now.
That's the game. I'm just saying to the listeners, Bill, if they have got any questions for you that they want to put to you, just to start loading them up in the chat boxes. Alternatively, guys, if you want to call in to the show, certainly by all means, and absolutely we're glad to have you on board. Now, you're talking about what was it in one of your vids that I saw? You were saying that the church and the state has never been connected.
Well, see, this is where this is a really great fallacy, and that's the reason we're doing these videos. Okay, we, meaning the world right now, because of legislation in all countries post-World War II. Of course, a lot of people have touched on the UCC of 1933, okay, also, which led to GATT and the WTO and everything else. So we're all basically functioning under the same rules. And I can't really elaborate because we don't have the time. This is what we're going to do in the videos. We're going to present this for what we think it really is, which is the church sold everybody out. Every church sold everybody out. Okay? And so if you have pride of place, forget about it. The best example I can give you is what's known as the 501c. In the U.S., they've done it quite openly, where a church was untouchable, and now they have to be listed with the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, as 501c nonprofit organizations. That quite simply means that before, the police, the state, could not go anywhere near a church. Now they have the right to regulate them as nonprofit organizations. Okay? So that's just one sign. Basically, the same thing happened in Britain and came in place in 1823, where they finally came out and said, okay, the church agrees, excuse me, that you can't use benefit of clergy as a defense in court anymore. And that's why all these people were shipped off to Australia, the colonies first, okay? And, of course, that goes back to the Scottish martyrs. It was basically people who were outraged that this was going on. But they kept the king's peace. Yeah, they didn't murder anyone. So they didn't have the right to hang them because they got rid of the bloody code before. 222 hanging offenses. Okay? And that, too, was contrived. The people who run society, they've got a lot of plans. And if you start to get suspicious and look back through the history a little bit, you go, hold on there. They did this 30 years before in order to be able to accomplish this, 32 years down the line. So a series of things happened, starting with the apparent retraction of benefit of clergy, and they led to the Reform Act. And then everything just kind of went downhill from there because in statute form, they began to control everything. Yeah, and so it's quite a lot to get your head around, and that's why we're doing these videos in the way that we're doing it. Because also, the guy who is on the last two videos actually went to court the other day. Yeah, and we tested it. He tested it with both feet, and we went and watched him. And that video will be up tomorrow or the next day, where he's talking about what happened. But basically what happened is he went into the court. He had put in an affidavit the day before to break the contract that was presumed, a lot of presumptions. And he walked in there, and he was the man. And the judge ran out as well as the prosecutor. Okay? And they adjourned it. Now, we don't know what's going to happen, but standing up for yourself as a living, walking, breathing soul, that's got a lot of value. They don't know what to do. Yeah, because that's not the way statutes are built. And that's not what courts are about either. Okay? I don't want to blow anybody's mind who might be listening in and saying, okay, I want to learn something here. Basically, we have to explain to people through the videos what a court really is and how it functions. Because most people don't know. And those who know won't tell because they're usually making money out of it. And that's something that's really hard for someone to get their head around, that a court is a place of business and how they accomplish that business. So we're going to try and get that across, and it's going to take about another 4 or 5 videos maybe. But we're trying to give as many references as possible so that people can go online and try and fit their predicament to what's going on. Because how many people are in a predicament now? A lot more than before.
Yeah, and there'll be a lot more to come. See, we all know that the courts are registered trading corporations for profit, yeah?
I'm sorry, I couldn't catch that.
I'm saying we're all aware that the court systems are every single one of them. They're all registered trading corporations for profit.
Well, yeah, that's one thing, but to understand their actual function in there is just mind blowing. It's archaic. Okay, it's an archaic method of a staged play. Yeah, and it's an improvised play.
Well,
and they know how to begin it and to end it. And when you go into the court, you are an incidental player. Yeah, because they got your role figured out already. That's the entire point here. They already know what you're going to do.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's what's sad, and that's what needs to change. So, yeah, I see lots of people making progress. Yeah, because of course we've been looking at this quite a lot recently, and yeah, everyone is waking up. Thank goodness.
Yeah, well, we are aware that it's a play, because these guys that get in there, they're wearing costumes, of course, aren't they? So actors and stuff wear costumes. So yeah, it's a play.
Yeah, it's generally hard to grasp, but that's what it is. It's somebody else's game.
Yeah, well,
and we don't know the rules. Yeah, that's the worst of it. But you don't have to play it, and that's the point. So you don't have to play the game. All they have is brute force.
So how? Okay, well, talk me through. Okay, you're saying affidavit. Now, affidavit only stands as truth. It isn't truth, and a judge can overrule that at any time because it isn't truth. It only stands as truth. So tell me how your man there, who was in court the past couple of days or whatever, how he actually orally handled himself.
Well, quite well, actually, because the judge was irritated from the start when he read the first line, where the man claimed to be the beneficiary and executor of the last testament of God. And the judge laughed. And unfortunately, everyone forgot to tell the judge to turn around and look at that shield behind him because it says, Dieu est mon droit, God and my right. And supposedly he took an oath to that, supposedly, yeah? So that would make him a heretic. He could be burned at the stake at a different point in time. Of course, he laughed, and the man didn't think it was funny, and there was a verbal altercation. And the judge continued to ask him to state his name, to name his estate, and he wouldn't do it. He insisted that he tell him if he read the affidavit or not, because the affidavit itself broke the presumed contract, as I said before. So it meant that he wasn't cooperating. He couldn't be hit for not showing up to court. But that court is a done deal. They've already made their decision before you walk in.
That's right.
Okay, so knowing that, having broken that presumption, what was left to do was he turned to the prosecutor and he said, you need to get this informer out of court or anyone pretending to be me. Okay, and a prosecutor is the informer or the informant. And again, we will explain in the films what that actually means for people in broader terms. But the prosecutor finally said, I guess I should go. And they packed up their things and left, and then the judge, he just was befuddled. He didn't know what to do. He was argumentative. And finally he abandoned the court, to which our man said, I object. And he recused himself. And he also made sure that he told them once again that he had dismissed the case, as he had done in his affidavit, and the judge adjourned it. So that was that. We thought he would go. Well, they emptied the courtroom, by the way, and they decided that all the other cases they were going to hear that day were going to be moved to another spot. So at first we were under the impression that the judge was going to come back and change the form. Okay, so the objection was in. He knew not to come back. They sent the court manager in, and the court manager wouldn't sign anything to confirm the decision, but told us in no uncertain terms that it had been adjourned and something by post would go to the legal fiction.
By changing form, do you mean that the guy leaves the room and he comes back as a ship's captain or something?
Well, you know what? Let's say he starts out as a captain and he comes back as an admiral. Yeah, because when they change the form, again, it's if you've already given them jurisdiction, if you've stated your name and if you've allowed them to catch you in that part of the game, when they come back, they can now place another hat on you, yeah, recategorize you, and send you for 50 lashes, if you will.
See,
yeah.
My problem with comprehension of that particular aspect of that concept that you've given me there. Bear in mind, you're talking about realise who you are, what you are, and all that kind of stuff, and perception. Well, to my thinking, and I might be wrong in your opinion, but I'll address this question to you anyway. It's my perception that if a man leaves the courtroom that's supposed to be the judge and he comes back into the room, then he's still just a man. What do you think about that? Just my just my thoughts, like, just to see what you think.
Well, no, you're right about that. I mean, from your point of view, you're right. Okay, from your point of view, if you change your point of view ever so slightly, and this is the understanding of the mechanics of the court, yeah, and there are lots of people who explain this really well. But I would recommend Free Manitoba. You can Google that. There's a guy named Dean Clifford, and he's put some videos. And I was considering saying something on one of my videos that's coming up about him, that somebody should knock his beer over, because he really stole my thunder. I had an intention to cover the subject. And he does it so well that I would recommend that anyone who can go on YouTube and put in Dean Clifford or Free Manitoba, they will see some really good information about how one handles themselves. And he explains who the players are and what goes on in a court. Okay, and he does it quite well. I mean, I think he's done it much better than I could have done it, and I think that would be useful, again, for people to know that they're not alone. You need a confidence builder if you're in trouble. Yeah, and so, yeah, I think that if you, and I'd recommend this for yourself, I think, he comes across really well, and he's been there. Yeah, this is the most important part, that he's been there and he's done that, and it's not false confidence that he has. He wants to be left alone like everybody else. Yeah, and then that's the genuine side of it. So I think it would be useful for anyone to look in.
Yeah. Well, just to let you know, listeners, that we have got Dean Clifford coming on to TNS Radio possibly next Monday. We're just waiting on confirmation of that. So that will be interesting. Okay, so I've got another guest lined up, Bill, as you know, but final words, bearing in mind, we're talking about court, we're talking about London, talking about different things, perception. Let's try and pin down some sort of solution then. I know that the youngsters are frustrated, they don't see much of a future. What would you say is a solution to everyday problems that we're seeing in the world today? Really and truly, everyone's studying a little bit. Really, taking even an hour a day, just to talk to their friends, yeah, and find ways to let other people know that not that the world is going to end, not that we're going to fall off a cliff, but hey, we should get a bit more responsible, yeah, and charity starts at home. So if you're going to be good to somebody, be good to yourself. Find out who you are, and find out what your rights are, and look around at your life and see what's going on, because you have the state considers you an enemy.
but you don't have to consider them an enemy at all. All you have to do is know who you are, and the servants can go back to being servants, and the masters can. I mean, we can be left alone. Yeah, because these people are civil servants, and they're not behaving that way.
Yeah,
yeah.
Absolutely.
There you are.
Okay, well, listen, Bill, thanks very much for coming on to TNS Radio. We'll maybe get you back in the future. I know it's been a kind of hurried spot tonight, but as I said previously, that we had another guest lined up, and
well, great. No, I'm glad to have spoken with you. I hope it's useful to someone. Yeah.
Well, I hope some of the listeners gain something from it anyway. So thanks very much for coming on to TNS Radio, Bill. All the best. Keep me posted. If you can get Stuart to send me a copy of that vid when it's through, and I can distribute it. In the various locations that I frequent.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Gary.
Not a problem.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure having you on. Cheers now. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Well, guys, that was Bill. And he was talking to us about concept of law perception, and he mentioned Dean Clifford, and of course we're going to be having Dean Clifford on possibly next week, so tune in and spread the word about that one.